stream now. I will now call to order the study session meeting of March 1st, 2021. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, this meeting is being held electronically, and members of the council are participating remotely pursuant to the council's electronic participation policy. Public access to the meeting is available on the Local Government Access Channel 8 for Comcast subscribers and on the city's YouTube channel online, and by telephone using the call-in numbers posted on the meeting agenda. Joanna, will you call the roll, please?
Mayor Leidy.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Wilford. Councilmember Witkovich.
Here.
Councilmember Peterson.
Here.
Councilmember Downing.
Here.
Councilmember Brown.
Here.
Councilmember Goff.
Here.
Councilmember Duran Mullica.
Here.
Councilmember Escobar.
Here.
Thank you.
Excellent. Welcome, everybody. So we have two agenda items for our study session tonight. The first one is the Homelessness Community Task Force update. So we have a guest with us tonight, Jessica Hulse, Community Resource Navigator, will provide the presentation to council. So welcome, Jessica, and I will pull the presentation up for you.
Great, thank you.
All right, the floor is yours.
Perfect. Hi, thanks for having me on. I think I've met most of you before. I'm Jessica Hulse, the Community Resource Navigator, and I'm just going to be giving you an update on our Homelessness Community Task Force. We can go to the next slide.
Okay.
So the updates from myself is that we have started, this past month, we have started our resource hours on Fridays from 9 till 12. And I'm using a room in the bottom floor of City Hall, or on the bottom floor of City Hall. The resource hours have been being used pretty consistently. Every week I do have people being referred from different agencies. And so I just wanted to give you a little case study. I did have a man come to me and he was referred through the food bank to me. The food bank does hand out my information on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. The Immaculate Heart of Mary food bank does. And so this man came into me and he has been living unsheltered and he needed some assistance in tracking down his EBT card. He needed an address to be able to do so. And then he also just needed questions answered about resources. And we were also heading into some cold weather. So he needed some cold weather care items. And partnering with Adams County, I did have those items to be able to give to him. He works full time, so he is not able to access the swap when we were doing it with the one central location of swap intakes. So he was able to get enough resources to live a way that he thought he was going to be able to keep himself safe through those cold nights. I also have a woman who was referred to me through Adams County through the swap intake. And so she came because she was able to get to our resource center without transportation issues. And she actually has a housing voucher, which is very exciting, but she's unsure on how to use it and how to put it to good use because she does not have a phone to do her research on what places will accept a voucher, nor does she have transportation to get around to talk to the intake offices. So we're able to partner with her and hopefully being able to get her to use her housing voucher, which would actually result in a person who's living unsheltered right now ending up with their own house, which would be really exciting. Other things that are going on from my point of view is that we are growing our partnership with our police department. And this has been really exciting because oftentimes our police department is the department that sees the greatest need. They are responding to crisis calls, and that doesn't always mean that they have the transportation or the resources to get the person exactly what they need when they need it. So they are reaching out sometimes when they are on scene, and that's resulted in me being able to help them get a Lyft ride for the person that they are working with to get them to a shelter. So that's happened like in live time. And then they've also been able to refer me out to different camps where I then also visit, and I leave the resource hours as an option for them to come visit me on a Friday because a lot of times people don't really trust people walking right up to their encampments, but at least I have some information that I can leave for them, and then they can visit me later. The partnership has also been when a 72-hour notice for a cleanup has been posted. We also leave the resources that a person can follow up with me directly. So it's kind of a wraparound resource, which has been pretty exciting. So we've also started doing volunteering hours. So people can sign up to come volunteer with me in the Friday resource room, which is really nice because a lot of people who joined our task force really want that kind of like boots on the ground experience of volunteering with the city. And so having these resource office hours provides a safe way for us to do so. And that we can also keep it pretty trauma informed by letting just the people that are involved in the task force to come in and working side by side with me, so we aren't just sending people out by themselves. So it brings me, like, in conclusion, from my point of view, is that our office hours and my case management and everything has highlighted to me that the road to resources can be long and frustrating. There are plenty of clients that I'm working with month after month to try and help them get themselves into a better position. And a couple of case studies with that is I've been working with a man since probably since beginning of October. And first it was really building that trust to be able to continue to work together. And then it was to start identifying some goals for him. And then now it's, he's actually started accessing like SWAP program and keeping himself safe. And now he's identified another goal, which is where he'd like to get a social security card. And he has a place of employment that he would be able to work in with a friend. So that's exciting for him. Even though the road has been long, he keeps putting one foot in front of the other, and he keeps getting access to more resources. And now he's actually seeing his own personal motivation there too. Another case study for our current one is I was working with a gentleman who was wheelchair bound, and so he was also sleeping outside. Transportation to offices has been difficult. Trying to navigate resources without a consistent phone or internet connection has been difficult. All of his vital documents have been lost. So we are working together to get him an appointment at the DMV to get his identification back. We've been able to work with the Lyft program, which is where I'm able to send Lyft rides directly to where he is. So transportation to shelters is not as big of a barrier. And then I'm just having a consistent place for him to meet is also been great because he's been able to get some family members in contact with me too. So we're able to make sure that he's updated on resources. And the feedback I've received from people who do come into the resource office hours, the quotes that I've written down is, "I'm so glad I had this number. Thank you for being nice." Sometimes just showing up and having an office where someone is friendly to you on the other end has been pretty nice for people to land in my office. And then also just thank you for being here. And so I want to extend that to City Council also for letting these community resource hours continue on. And so that's from this slide. And Mayor, we can move on to the next slide. So SWAP is our severe weather activation plan, and it's actually funded through Adams County, and it's run through Almost Home. The activation is determined by 8 o'clock in the morning every morning, and it's if the weather is going to be less than 20 degrees and dry, or less than 32 degrees and wet. The email goes out to a large network of people saying when the intakes will occur. And then clients can actually go to that intake center between 12 and 4 and get their hotel voucher. It's changed a little bit, and I'm going to go through that in the coming up slides here. They have 1.5 employees dedicated. That halftime is shifting, so they went to 1.5 employees. It's back down to 1 at the moment, but it will be being brought back up to another halftime employee. So we can move on to the next one. So the challenges in SWAP has been the limited rooms and vouchers. The vouchers are not limited because Adams County funding. The rooms are limited because of the hotel capacity. So every morning that SWAP is activated, Almost Home reaches out to the hotels that they have partnerships with, and they find out how many rooms are available. And then that determines how many vouchers can be handed out that day. Another challenge for the SWAP program has been transportation. Since the intake location has gone back to Almost Home's location, which is located in Brighton, it's a little bit harder for people to get to that intake location. And then also there's a red list of people who have been asked to no longer utilize the hotels, and that list is created by the hotels themselves. Some opportunities that are emerging through this shift in intake location is that we now have street outreach intakes. So the municipalities themselves can now be doing some intakes, which allows us to do that like right where the person is at that moment in time. And then the success has been that it's been widely known that it's like the word of mouth, even with people who don't have access to phones, are typically able to find out when SWAP is activated just because it's a network of people that are constantly using it. It's provided a lot of opportunity for intermunicipality partnership. We work together pretty continuously every day right now, talking to each other and finding out where encampments are, where people need to have transportation from to either get to the intake center or have a voucher brought to them. And then also it allows for people who are experiencing homelessness to stay with their pets. I often work with people who have a pet and they will not go into a shelter because that pet would need to be left behind. And pets really are family members, and it really has been a barrier for people to access shelter. But at the same time, they provide a lot of positivity in other people, in other parts of those people's lives. So we can go on to the next one. SWAP data is provided to us through Almost Home, and about 500 vouchers were issued in Adams County, which is a 625% increase from last winter. Last winter was the first time SWAP was used, and it was only activated, I think, in March and April of last winter. So it's really still kind of in its beginning stages of trying to figure out how it's going to work best in regards to the personnel distributing the vouchers as well as the clients who are utilizing the vouchers. And then you guys can see the funding that's gone into it has just grown from month to month. And February's date, I think they're reporting it in quarters, so we need to wait until the end of April to be able to get the exact numbers for the next couple of months here. So we can go on to the next one. Okay, so this is the vouchers holder's last permanent city or state of residence. So Northglenn falls right into the middle of this. This is not to be confused with the question from like our PIT count, which is where did you spend the last night? So this is where their permanent address was. And because we do live in an area where people often are crossing boundary lines, it's difficult. Like this is a really good guide, but it's also a little bit skewed because Thornton is where the intake center was. So they might have more people, that were utilizing it that were from Thornton. It would be interesting to see this data now that it's moved back to Brighton and see what this data says as well. And we can move on to the next one. This is the question of where did you sleep last night? And so these are all of the different definitions of homelessness. So one of the first stops that people do when they enter into homelessness is they sleep in their car or their RV. A lot of times people will lose their home before they give up their car, because giving up their car is also giving up a sense of independence, their access to their work, their access to their community. Then you have people who are sleeping outside, then the hotel, motel, hospitals. Doubled up is when you're like couch surfing, or you have families that are staying with one another, but not necessarily in a leased situation. And then shelters, and then we just go on into the other smaller categories. Yep, you can keep going. So recommendations that are underway, because SWAP is really great right now, but there are limitations with how many people it's able to service. And when people are accessing a program like SWAP, they are still living, quote unquote, like a homeless person. So meaning that you have to pack your stuff with you wherever you go. You don't have secure storage for your belongings. So accessing work is difficult. You're often leaving your stuff behind when you try and go to work. So then you're coming home, you're coming back to your items and you're hoping that they're still there. So things that help alleviate that are safe outdoor spaces, which are, so Rupa and I, we visited those in Denver, and as well as tiny home villages. We are also looking at safe parking lots, and that allows people to stay in their cars. And one church that I've heard of actually provides storage so people can have more room in their cars. But a safe parking lot for people living in their cars does allow people to access other services and their jobs as well. We are looking at a regional partnership to discuss navigation centers, which would be kind of like a one-stop shop, kind of like my Friday resource hours, but you can have things there like dental or mental health providers. You can have SWAP, like SWAP could have an office there. So just kind of bringing those resources all together. And then this was also a recommendation that we had talked about doing through Northglenn, and Adams County is also looking at doing it. So we're looking at partnering with them, which is the community education component, to kind of help destigmatize what people experiencing homelessness, what they are experiencing, as well as themselves in general. And then also letting the communities know common hardships and challenges to living that kind of lifestyle. I know that we've talked with Adams County about sharing some of our stories from Northglenn, and other municipalities are doing that too. So hopefully we'll have like a good representation of all of Adams County when we're doing our education piece. We can go on to the next one. So successes that Northglenn is seeing right now. So I am doing, case management through our municipal court referrals. And I'm also partnering with code enforcement for some case management referrals. And what that's provided is some really neat interdepartment partnerships where we are having meetings once a month, and we're able to talk about barriers that are, if we're all kind of interacting with one resident, we're able to problem solve and kind of bring all of those solutions to the table at one time to see if there's like a good logical way to approach that. Street outreach is continuing, and it's kind of morphing into using those office hours. Street outreach is providing the information on where the office hours are, how they can schedule a meeting with me if they want, a dedicated time, and as well as like talking about how to get involved in the SWAP program. Those are our successes that we've been working on right now, so we can continue on. So opportunities. So like I was talking about the decentralized SWAP, that has really been taking up a lot of time through January and February, just because the weather has been so cold. So SWAP is being constantly utilized. And having a decentralized SWAP has provided really great opportunities for Northglenn, but it's also taken a lot of brainstorming on how to make that happen in an equitable way. So working on getting the word out that people can contact me, that our outreach, like we do have some people from our street outreach team that walk around and they do tell people that SWAP is active for that day, and then working with them to try and figure out a way to get that person that they've come across into the SWAP intake center, or getting a voucher out to where that person is at that moment in time. Our Adams County IGA is hopefully going to be able to broaden SWAP into a respite care program. And that would be for people who are experiencing homelessness for the first time. Because a lot of times if you can find stability for a family that's entering into homelessness, that's when you have like the most success in helping them get out of homelessness pretty quickly. So getting them that stability for 2 weeks or through a hotel situation with using funds from all of the different municipalities. Through a lot of this, a lot of different municipalities have been hiring homeless liaisons and street outreach workers. So we've all been working really well together, and we're able to share information with one another and be able to get access to resources quicker. I'm able to text a bunch of people really quickly and say, hey, this person needs this information or needs a voucher. And then I've had outreach workers from Thornton go over to that person and be able to get a voucher to that person. And then the same as Adams County was able to give that woman my information, and she was able to get over to our resource office. Collaborations with nonprofits and faith communities. This has really shown a pretty great relationship actually with our food bank over at Immaculate Heart of Mary. We email pretty regularly when I'm working on Fridays, just checking in about different clients that have been trying to access resources in different ways. And then as well as our faith community, we have some churches who are interested in safe parking spaces. So getting them in touch with the right Safe Parking Collaborate or Colorado Safe Parking Collab. I'm going to blank on the name right now, but it's the Safe Parking Initiative of Colorado, and it's the correct avenue to be going through to start looking at if you can, and if your church and congregation want to be doing a safe parking space. So we can go ahead and move on from that. And we're on to questions already.
Okay, Councilmember Duran Mullica.
Quick question. So can you explain to me a little bit more about the voucher program? Because you said that it's not necessarily the limited number of vouchers, it's the availability of rooms. So is there only certain types or a certain number of rooms that hotels have opened up?
So it's not how many they've opened up, it's how many they have of free occupancy. And so because those hotels are open to the general public, and I'm not even sure what COVID regulations are on hotels if they're operating at reduced capacity, I'm not sure about that. But each morning they do look at that. And some hotels do have partnerships with other surrounding hotels. So I know that this one hotel in particular, when it's filled to capacity, then it does have some sister hotels that it can use as overflow for people still, so that we still have other rooms available. But it's not Adams County saying this is as much as we're going to do. It's the hotel capacity, of the physical capacity.
Oh, okay, of the area. Okay, so another question that I have for you. So say I'm somebody who just got a housing voucher. Is it like a physical thing that you're given, or what does that mean exactly?
So are you talking about the hotel voucher or housing voucher?
Sorry, a hotel voucher.
The hotel voucher is a physical voucher. And
okay.
So, the intake process is that they work with an intake worker, and we take down their information because Almost Home does have a goal to provide case management to everybody who enters into their swap program. And so then we fill out a voucher. They get half the voucher, we keep half the voucher. We scan the voucher into Almost Home, who then scans it over to the hotel itself.
Oh,
so then
okay.
the hotel knows, yes, this person is coming. This is the voucher number they should be matched up with.
Oh, okay. Interesting. All right, great. Thank you. Another final question I had is, so Almost Home is located in Brighton. So do you actually have to move people physically from like your location, wherever you're at, or wherever you find them, to Brighton to get the voucher?
So at times that does happen. So for example, on Tuesdays when I'm providing case management and I have meetings going on, if I'm getting texts or calls from people experiencing homelessness that need to enter the swap program, I'm the only person in Northglenn right now that can issue a voucher. And so if that's happening, then what I do is I have a quick access to a Lyft ride, and I get a Lyft directly to where that person is, and then they go straight to Brighton. During that time, I typically also text the people over in Brighton to say, can we reserve a voucher for this person that's coming? That has been tricky because they have that one person, operating the vouchers on their end, and they typically have a line as soon as it's activated. So the communication during the swap activation periods is fast and furious. And so it's constantly trying to keep track of how many rooms in live time. And then it's also tricky because the people who do have pets, there's only one hotel that they can go to. So you have to keep track of how many rooms are at that hotel for people who have pets.
Wow, that does sound like a very complex process. So can you tell me, there was a partnership with Anything Library and that has dissolved. Can you provide any more insight on what happened?
So the Anything Library in Thornton, what was happening was the swap program has become so much more popular than last year that as soon as swap was activated, they were having people line up starting at like around 8 in the morning. And so then those people are literally there from around 8 in the morning till around 4 in the afternoon when they can start heading out towards their hotels. And so the Anything Library, coupled with their own population and clientele coming in, it was kind of a traffic jam around their doors, as well as looking at some security. I've only heard of a couple of times when security was needed, and the library does have their own security guard, but it was detracting from kind of like the main purpose of the library and their mission.
Okay. Oh, great. Well, thank you so much for going over that process for me. I just need to figure out the details to help understand it a little better. Thank you.
I know it has been tricky, and I do give a lot of credit to Almost Home to working together because you do need paper vouchers, you do need transportation. There are limited rooms, so keeping everything updated in live time while still meeting the needs of the clients has been a puzzle, but it's getting solved.
Very impressive. Yes. Thank you.
Councilmember Goff.
Thank you. So I have a couple of questions. One is just a kind of a clarification. If I understand right, you're saying that we've had I guess Adams County has had a 625% increase in number of vouchers given out. But do you have any indication? Like, was that enough? Was that did you have to still have to turn people away? You're going to need more than that in the future, I'm assuming, but.
So the only reason that I know that we've had to turn people away, there's two reasons. One, the intake hours closed. And so, and I don't know the reasoning behind that. That was kind of an organization that wasn't from our end. And then also from the physical rooms being occupied. So I do know that Almost Home is looking at bringing on more hotels to provide more occupancy levels. And I have not heard yet that the funding has ever been an issue as of yet.
So, but I guess my point is that there are more people out there that would take advantage of this if they could. So
that is correct.
So yes. Even though it's like, you might look at that 625% and you think, wow, that's like a lot, but it's still not enough is what I'm hearing.
Correct. For example, last week was the pit count, and which is the point in time count, which is something that the entire state of Colorado uses to count how many people are experiencing homelessness in that region. The North Denver Metro Initiative, MDHI, Metro Denver Homelessness Initiative, decided that this year, because of COVID and the way that the pit count was going to have to be done with COVID guidelines, that this year, the Denver area, we would count the sheltered residents, and then we would also use last year's numbers. So what Adams County did was they made sure that our shelter program was active on the pit count day to be able to get that many people in, and it was advertised as such. And on that day, when we and I actually went to Brighton to help with that intake that day because we knew that the majority of people were going to be there since that's where it was being advertised. And that day, the hotels did run out of rooms. And so while a lot of rooms had been provided, we definitely still had a line of people that were turned away that day.
Okay, thank you. And then my other question is that you didn't mention it just now, but in the materials we got, it says that Adams County is providing a post office box.
Oh yeah, sorry, that didn't make it into the presentation.
Right. So then I just was wondering, is that like at the local post office, or is it something that? Okay, so it's at the post.
So Northglenn, we have one at the post office over off of Washington and I think like 120th somewhere over there.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. All right, and then I think this might be my last question. You also in the notes here talked about the partnership with police has collected and donating items for these people. The Citizens of Police Academy Alumni Association, I guess. And so I was wondering, is this an ongoing thing? Is this something that could be publicized that other residents could donate to, or?
Not that I know of. I think it was a one-time thing. I think they chose to use some of their budget to purchase items and make kits for people, is what my understanding of that is. And so I know that a bunch of that was distributed to officers themselves, but then they also provided my resource room with a bunch, and we've handed out quite a few actually already, which has been nice. But I think that those opportunities to put the kits together, those do just keep happening. Like Adams County had some extra money, or during the cold weather care, we did do a drive and we were able to distribute clothing that way. Then all of a sudden this resource was an opportunity. So I've never felt low on supplies as of right now. But I also am curious to see how that continues with the resource office hours becoming more popular.
All right. Yeah, thank you. I just want to make sure that we don't run out.
Yeah, and I think that the trick will be to not run out through April. My understanding is that coming on last July and starting to work with our population in Northglenn, it didn't feel as crisis related as it does right now during these cold months. So I am interested to see what that looks like as we move back into spring.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Yep.
Councilmember Brown?
Hi, Jessica. First off, I want to thank you for everything you're doing.
No.
I've sent numerous people over to you, and everyone that reaches back out to me afterwards has nothing but nice things to say about you and how you were able to help them. So I really appreciate you doing that. It's a great job. I have a couple questions for you.
Yeah.
The first one is, how do you maintain safety when you're going into a camp?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's one that I'm constantly reminded of. I do. So Heather McClure is a good outreach worker from Adams County. And so she's really has jurisdiction to go wherever she's needed within Adams County. So she actually comes and sits in our office hours with me on Fridays, most Fridays if she doesn't have like a training or another meeting going on. So I think she's only missed one Friday so far. And so her and I will go out together. And then also for example, last week at the end of the week, I had an officer email me about an encampment. And so this week I will go ahead and ask one of the officers to take me out there. So I've gone on with 3 different officers so far, and they've all been really happy to take me as far as I can tell. And so then we go out, and sometimes that interaction is a little bit different, responding with law enforcement. So they are really great at helping me just figure out where to put my information, and hopefully we're able to get it to them, and then that person can get in touch with me when they can.
Perfect. But how are you staying safe? Is that with always going with an officer?
Yes, I don't go by myself is the answer to that question.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Perfect. I just wanted to make sure that we were taking care of your safety. You had mentioned during your presentation that there was volunteering that happened on Friday afternoon. Is that open to anybody who wants to volunteer, or is it?
My mom is going to do something wonderful.
Well, go get your grandfather. You know what? I'm sorry. It sounds like my daughter's having a seizure.
Okay.
Yeah. So, no, but it's just the people who are previously on your group, right?
That's correct. And to answer that quickly, it's just to keep a trauma-informed response, pretty consistent. So it's people that are already familiar with the barriers that people experiencing homelessness are experiencing, and then to help keep their interactions pretty consistent, then to have that relationship with me. And so I can keep that trust going with people that are coming into the office.
I got to go. I'm so sorry.
No, good.
No worries.
Yep.
Thank you, Jessica, for being here. I want to echo Councilmember Brown's thank you for your work. We may have a few more questions, but I was wondering, I wanted to call out specifically your regional partnerships, because that is so key to be. I'm sorry.
I was enthusiastically agreeing.
Yeah. And it is really that's such a valuable strategy. And so I appreciate that work. And I was wondering, this is a regional concern, and there have been some questions. Has the task force or have you heard in any of your regional discussions, has there been any mention of adding a shelter near us or in our neighborhood?
There has not been talked about a shelter. There is talk because, okay, so there is talk about maybe bringing in like a safe outdoor space or a tiny home village. My understanding from working with people experiencing homelessness and then touring the different places in Denver, that congregate shelters is kind of, I like the way that someone put it, was like the 1980s answer to people experiencing homelessness. But it does still make people live in a way that they are having to defend their items, to keep track of their items, to travel with their items. So the model has kind of shifted to a community living space, which is those safe outdoor spaces where people have their own place to put a tent, where there's security that is provided, where they have maybe their own tiny home village where they can lock their belongings away and actually use it as a real home, not just like a rolled out mat on the floor where they have to then clean up their stuff every day and bring it with them.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that answer. Councilmember Brown, is everything okay?
Just about as okay as it can be. Sorry, Joe's home. Okay. So can I ask my last question?
Yeah.
I'm sorry I had to bail on you guys. I had a person that we had helped, that I'm sure you had helped, and he had gone to the hotel. He got a hotel voucher. But his concern was that he had to leave the hotel by 11 o'clock that morning because he didn't know if he was going to get a hotel room for that night. So how does that work? I mean,
sure.
Do they forfeit their hotel after a certain time limit or?
No. So right now, SWAP was active today and it was active through tomorrow. So they knew that the temperature tonight was going to drop below their threshold, so they activated it. So the people who were in SWAP as of last night, they would have been notified this morning by their hotel. You don't have to check out until tomorrow. So their hotel stays just continuously get extended is the way that works. They don't have to check out to then get another voucher to check back in.
Okay. So he might have misunderstood or it
and I think there were some questions about that. It is difficult, I would say, the education component on the way exactly SWAP works. And as you can imagine, there is high anxiety that someone is going to lose their shelter for that night. So if they hear a rumor or they start thinking of something and they can't get the answer right then there is high anxiety that night is going to go unsheltered.
Do we do anything, last one, I promise, do we do anything as far as food? Do we provide any kind of care package for food or only on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays when Immaculate Heart of Mary is open?
So there are a lot of different food pantries and people like myself, as well as other homeless liaisons, we're working with places like Growing Home to help identify when they're doing their food giveaways, to have a type of box of food that is more suitable for unsheltered living. So things that don't necessarily require a can opener, not a lot of fresh produce that's going to go bad, things that are easily packed, things that aren't going to get smashed in a backpack type thing or traveling bag. So there is the education component working with the food banks, and there is more than just Immaculate Heart of Mary. One of the big resources for people experiencing homelessness is an EBT card, which is the SNAP program supplement. So that's through Adams County. So helping people apply for that food stamp. It's the old food stamps, but SNAP now. So, so that's one of the things that I do a lot with people is I help them apply for that. And that's where having that address really comes in handy. And if a person identifies as experiencing homelessness, their case is expedited. And so the majority of people that I work with that applies for that EBT card, then they do usually have that card in hand within about 10 days. And so that most people that I am working with who are experiencing homelessness, either they've had that card before or they already have it. So it's an easy it's a somewhat easy access as long as you have a computer and a mailing address. So that's where our resource office hours come in handy. But then having that really gives the person, their own freedom to buy food as they need it and to be able to fulfill whatever meals that they need to make up. So that's usually like the best resource. And then the food banks, of course, are really fantastic as long as they're also cognizant over unsheltered types of food.
Right. What about the pets? Do we do anything?
Pets, that's a good idea. I don't know, to tell you the truth. The people with pets, somehow they always put their pets before them. I've gone to a couple of barbecues with people experiencing homelessness back when it was a little bit warmer out, and their pets were eating just as well as us at the barbecue. So I think that somehow they get that figured out. I am going to pitch to Rupa did have to stand in for me the other day, and she sent someone off with a bunch of treats for their dog as they went into their swap program. So that was really, the person called me up almost in tears, just really happy that her pets have been thought of. So that was really sweet.
So there's one more and then I'm done. Promise, council people.
Okay.
The financing for this program. Is the financing for the program completely out of Adams County, or does the city of Northglenn, like when you do the Lyft vouchers and things like that, is that coming out of our budget?
So the Lyft vouchers are provided through Adams County. They've set aside for each municipality to use 12 Lyft rides. I'm almost at that capacity and they told me to keep going. So they still have funding for it. It costs about $25 to get someone to Brighton and about $25 to get them back to whatever hotel they're going to. But that is not something that we have started funding. I know that our city council has passed the money for the bus passes. And I haven't had to use that funding yet either because Adams County has provided me with bus passes so far this year. So all of the things that I'm using right now have been provided through Adams County, and I'm reserving the funds that you guys have set aside for those bus passes. If it turns out that that $450 would be better used for Lyft, then I might be suggesting that that's the way that funding for transportation gets used rather than bus passes. But right now, it's all being taken care of through Adams County. As far as this, yeah.
I'm so sorry. So when you have to, or if you have to, I'd like to see that kind of information included in your updates so that we can, see what impact the city is making also. Because I really appreciate Adams County, but once we're spending our money that we budgeted for, I just think that there should be some kind of, just reporting back to us. That's all I want, Yeah,
that'd be great. And I hear that and I really appreciate it. And I also just want to make those dollars stretch as long as I can right now. So if it's being given to me through Adams County, I'm going to use that and know that in the back of my head, we're not going to run out for a while because I have that budget. So.
Okay, thank you. And I do appreciate you. I have sent so many people to you. I'm sure I'm keeping you busy. So thank you very much.
I have heard that. Thank you.
Yeah, I know. I'm very popular. What can I say? Thank you very much for your time, Jessica. And thank you for your patience in answering all my questions.
Yep. City Manager Geyer.
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to point out for the public's benefit for those who are tuning in to tonight's meeting, Jessica is going to be providing these reports on a quarterly basis to City Council. So this is the first of her 2021 reports. Additionally, Rupa will send Council an email update on a monthly basis. So 2 new communication strategies that we're working with to help keep Council informed, and in turn, we hope that you push this information out, whether it's you're talking one-on-one with the resident or you push it out via your social media channels. So let us know if you come across questions, specifically Jessica and Rupa. If you don't know the answer to something, or if somebody makes a suggestion, route it to us, and we'll continue to do what we can to support our homeless community here in Northglenn. Rupa, did you have anything you wanted to add?
There for moral support.
Well, I had a question kind of to piggyback on what you just said, Heather, as far as just making sure everyone understands who is on the task force, how often are they meeting, where are they generating their ideas, how can other concerned residents come forward with suggestions and ideas.
Rupa?
Yeah, so the task force was formed through an application process that closed last year. And so we started meeting in August. So the people that are on that task force are nonprofit organizations like Community Reach Center, Denver Rescue Mission, Almost Home is on there. Adams County is represented. We have concerned citizens. We have churches, faith-based organizations. So it's a group of about 30. And then anybody that has concerns, they can reach out, or suggestions, they can reach out to Jessica or myself. And if they want to be added to the task force email list and be invited to the next meeting, we can certainly do that. And we've extended that to a couple of folks. And then we also have a website on the City of Northglenn. There's a Homelessness Community Task Force page as well that has both our contact information on there. But ultimately, to answer your question, they can just reach out to Jessica and myself. We can take any suggestions or concerns and then invite them to the next meeting. And our plan is to also have the Homelessness Community Task Force meetings on a quarterly basis as well. So we would meet with them first. So Jessica and I, and Councilmember Goff, she's the liaison to the task force. We met in February. So our plan is to meet with them quarterly and then meet with City Council quarterly.
Okay, well, thank you. Does anyone have any other questions or comments? Councilmember Goff?
Thank you. I didn't get the little raise my hand thing quick enough. So I see in the materials that you sent that there were some, I'm not sure exactly, they would call them opportunities, but maybe some needs going forward, or recommendations. That's what I'm looking for. You have quite a list of recommendations, and I know we haven't talked about them tonight. So I'm just wondering when would be the time to go through that part of it, or like what's the next step with those recommendations? Are we going to get another opportunity to, because some of them look like they might need some funding. So I'm just wondering where we're going next.
Yeah, so right now we're in the research phase. So we're talking with Adams County and other municipal partners about, for example, the navigation center. The safe parking lots is really through the Colorado Safe Parking Initiative and other faith groups that are interested. So right now, because this is all in research phase, we don't have any solid recommendations that council can vote on. So once we get to that stage, we can certainly give you some hard numbers and suggestions on how we can move forward. But right now, we're just trying to figure things out still. The research phase takes a while, just because everything is always so complicated in terms of, what land can we use? Who do we need to partner with? What are the legal issues that are involved? So we're working through all those things right now.
To piggyback on that, I mean, I think I can talk about, so for specifics, we're looking at safe outdoor spaces within Adams County who would have land that they would want to use for that purpose. And then what kind of code changes would that have to go through to be able to make that a reality? That would be the same for tiny home villages. I'm in communications with a couple of different churches who are looking at safe outdoors, the safe parking. They're doing the same thing. They're going to reach out to their neighbors to see if their surrounding neighbors are interested in their parking lots. That's something that would not be advertised. It's typically kept pretty quiet. It's supposed to be kind of like you're blending right into the community. You're not becoming kind of a hub of resources. And then we also started talking to nonprofits that would be interested in moving in, nonprofits that operate shelters, and to see if those nonprofits would want to move into Adams County and what they would need. The nonprofit we did talk to said that they don't typically have a ton of problems when it comes to funding. They have their two top things to know that they can move into an area is political will as well as land use. So where there's space and where there's desire, but then the rest of it they typically are able to find funding for.
Okay. The one thing that you just wasn't mentioned just now was the RTD passes. And I know you said you've got some lift passes through Adams County, but I was assuming that the RTD passes that are mentioned in the recommendations would be something that the city would purchase. Is that correct?
Yes. So yeah, and I think I called them bus passes, but yes, they're the RTD passes. And at the end of the CARES Act funding, Adams County did provide us with a bunch of tickets for RTD passes. So I'm saving that. We allocated some money to go towards bus passes. And I'm waiting to see, like, right now, if RTD passes are needed or more lift passes or lift rides are needed. And then I'll make another recommendation as we move forward to say, I think that would be a really good idea to use this transportation money on this mode of transportation.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. I think you covered all the recommendations that I see. So thank you.
Yeah.
And just to clarify also for the RTD passes, so as Jessica mentioned, we're just waiting. We're trying to use up Adams County resources first and their money before we tap into the $425 that was set aside.
Well, Jessica, thank you again for being here. Thank you for your work. I know we all appreciate it. And it's, you've been busy.
Well, thank you for letting me do this work. It's been fun.
Awesome. And thank you for the update. We look forward to seeing it the next time.
All right. Sounds good. Have a good evening.
Okay, the second item on our study session agenda is paid family and caregiver leave. We have our Director of Human Resources with us, Tamara Dixon. So Tamara, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening. Good evening, council members. And thank you, Mayor, for driving my PowerPoint.
All right, here we go.
Thank you. It's really good to be here with you all this evening. So last October, HR staff brought before you the idea of the city developing its own paid family leave policy. And this was outside of what Proposition 118 was offering at the state level. And at that time, we were asked to bring back for your consideration a 10-week benefit, as well as an expanded definition of family member, because that definition is really limited within the Family Medical Leave Act. So I'm really pleased to be here this evening to bring back to you for your consideration a policy that includes both of those amendments. Before we move into the policy, it's worth reviewing what the city currently offers to employees in the event they need time off to either care for their own serious health condition or that of a family member, or to care for a newborn child or an adopted child. So right now, the city does offer a general leave bank, and this is paid leave that an employee starts to accrue on their first day of employment. This leave can be used for sick or vacation time off, and it does build up each year to a maximum accrual. The city also offers 16 paid hours or 2 full work days of personal leave. This is offered annually, given annually to full-time employees, and this leave can also be used for sick or vacation time off. The difference here is employees must use these hours prior to the last pay period of December, as they do not carry over into the next year. We also offer currently short-term disability, which is wage replacement at 80% for an employee for their own illness or injury or pregnancy. It's important to note that short-term disability will be replaced by the paid family and caregiver leave policy if approved. Thank you. Next slide. So this slide is for informational purposes. It shows the amount of general leave that we accrue as employees based on our years of service. So as you read in the paid family and caregiver leave policy, the first 2 weeks or the waiting period, an employee would use their own leave to satisfy that waiting period before the 10-week benefit kicked in. So as this slide shows, an employee who has been with us for 6 months should have enough leave in their general bank to cover that 2 weeks if they have managed their leave appropriately. Next slide, please. So why paid family leave? Why are we bringing this forward? If we just think back to the last year and what we've all gone through and how important that this time has been with our families especially, we're seeing this move across the country of employers offering additional paid family leave. Because what it does is it really provides greater financial security for our employees if they need to take an extended leave for medical reasons or to care for an ailing family member or a new child, as mentioned. So here in Northglenn, we do believe it's important for employees to be with their families during times that matter the most. And again, I think we can all agree with that based on the last year. It's hard to believe it's March already. And it's also proven that in organizations that take care of their employees really show that they're more family friendly, these are the organizations that retain their best employees. And so I really think that, our paid family and caregiver leave policy allows us to really take that next step in becoming an employer of choice. Next slide, please. Some other benefits of why we're bringing forward this policy to you on this slide include several things, but I want to highlight two of them especially. So you see on here, there's the benefit of having women more likely to return to work after childbirth. And also, we're ensuring gender equity in terms of leave. There are men who want to take leave to be with their newborns as well, and sometimes you're limited with the Family Medical Leave Act in some organizations as parents have to split that leave. Well, I love that we have these two benefits in here because I think that really also shows steps forward in our efforts to improve diversity, equity, and inclusion in the city. So I like how that's mirrored with that. Additionally, you see improved employee morale. And again, I think it really sets us apart as an employer and gives us that recruiting advantage. Next slide, please. So this slide gives us a visual of what the benefit would be, including the 2-week waiting period. Our proposal does ensure that employees would receive the same benefit no matter if they needed to take the leave for maternity leave, to care for their parent, or to provide care for another family member. Next slide, please. This is my favorite slide because it distinguishes what we want to offer in our paid family and caregiver leave policy versus what the Family Medical Leave Act provides. And I'd like to just go through it briefly. So as we know, family medical leave provides 12 weeks of unpaid job protected leave. That's great. Our policy would provide that same 12 weeks, but the difference here is ours offers 10 weeks of a paid benefit, which really, again, causes less of a financial burden on the employee and less of a worry for them if they need to be off for their own illness. Family medical leave requires that you work for your employer for 12 full months and a minimum of 1,250 hours before you're eligible. We have aligned the paid family and caregiver leave policy with Proposition 118, which says you're eligible at 6 months of employment. A big part of the struggle with Family Medical Leave Act is it really limits the definition of family member. So you can take family medical leave for your spouse or domestic partner, your child or your parent. We have extended the definition of family member in our draft policy, and that now includes your in-laws, your grandparents. There are grandparents raising their grandchildren, and also your siblings. So we thought we were absolutely in agreement with the idea to expand that definition and have done so. Family medical leave, another important distinction here, in my opinion, is you can use that for your own serious health condition, care for your family member, to bond with a new child, and also a military exigency. Family medical leave does cover domestic violence. However, it's very limited in what it covers. The Family Medical Leave Act, you can qualify under domestic violence if you are hospitalized for a domestic violence issue or if you are seeking care for post-traumatic stress disorder based on domestic violence. That really limits other definitions, I think, of domestic violence. So we've expanded that use to include, if you're a victim of stalking or you are an abuse victim and you need to take time away to get yourself to a safe space. So that is covered more broadly under our paid family and caregiver leave policy. You see the note at the bottom there that family medical leave will run concurrently with paid family and caregiver leave. And we thought that important so as not to give employees 24 weeks of leave in any given year. So if your condition qualifies under the Family Medical Leave Act, that leave will run concurrently. Next slide, please. This slide is an illustration for you that shows the number of family medical leave cases we've had in the city over the past 4 years. Here is where we get a sense of what potential costs could be for the paid family caregiver leave policy. And it really does depend on the number of employees who apply and are given the leave, as well as the actual number of weeks of leave taken. What I can say about this visual is, having worked in Colorado municipal government for almost 20 years now, I can say this is pretty typical in an organization this size, where you wouldn't see more than 9 or 10 cases of leave of this sort in a given year. And of course, I'm knocking on wood right now, because as soon as that comes out of my mouth. But this gives just an illustration of what the potential cost could be for our employees. Next slide, please. Just to elaborate on that point, again, the actual cost to implement really does depend on how many employees use the benefit, and you don't know that up front. So we've provided what an estimated cost could be for an employee to use the full 10-week benefit. So that $11,960 figure is the cost based on the average hourly rate of our current employees. Next slide, please. So those slides went quickly. This proposed policy, I think, is really a great step forward, as mentioned, for the city to really, again, make us an employer of choice. And you'll hear me say that a lot, because it's important to me that we are that. And so we are bringing this forward and recommending that we opt out of the state-administered family leave plan and adopt this paid family and caregiver leave policy. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, I see Councilmember Brown's hand.
Hi, Tamara, how are you?
Hi, I'm well. How are you?
I'm good. So I have a question for you. In FMLA, you can take it hours, you can take it a full day, you may not have to use it for a full week. I ran into the same thing with my dad. I used it very sporadically. Can they do the same thing with this program?
Yes, intermittent leave. Yes,
okay.
You could. Yes.
Okay.
Because sometimes your leave is for appointments related to an illness, and that's not necessarily continuous. So yes, intermittent leave would apply.
And at what point does short-term disability run out? I know you mentioned we're going to not have that anymore, but at what point does it run out and then goes to long-term disability? I thought that was like a year.
So that really depends on the person's condition and their ability to return back to work after short-term disability. But short-term disability is for a period of 6 to 8 weeks.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
So this covers, because we have 12 weeks, right? So this makes up for short-term disability, right?
It does, and it's paid at 100% of the employee's salary versus the 80%.
So if it's, short-term disability, I don't think I understand that. Can you clarify that for me?
Okay, so currently short-term disability is wage replacement, but it's at 80% of the employee's salary. And that's for a period of 6 to 8 weeks. Paid family and caregiver leave is mirrored 12 weeks to the Family Medical Leave Act, the first 2 weeks being the employee's own leave, the 10 remaining weeks paid by the city.
And paid at 100%?
At 100%.
Thank you so very much.
You're welcome.
Councilmember Goff?
Thank you. And yes, thank you for explaining this so succinctly, Tamara. I do have a couple of questions, and maybe I've missed something along the way, so forgive me if that's the case. But the one question is are the employees contributing towards this like they do for some of these other family leave or medical leave benefits?
Are they contributing financially?
Yes.
Yes, the first 2 weeks of paid family and caregiver leave is the employee's own time. So that's leave that they have already accrued. So that's essentially the 2-week waiting period that they would have to use their own leave.
Okay, so it's not something that comes out of their paycheck on a regular monthly basis or anything?
No.
All right, and then the other question I have is, and this might be more appropriately addressed to Heather, but how does the city sort of absorb, like I noticed, there are different amounts in different years. How does the city budget for that? Or how are we able to absorb the, like if it goes on to a higher end of the examples that you gave here? How do we deal with that?
Because that's a great question, Councilmember Goff. It's not something that I think we have to budget a line item for, because I think it'll be absorbed within salary line items. So we'll look year over year, and it's all going to be dependent on usage. But I think in the end, to use a highly technical budget term, it'll be a wash, in the sense of, if employees are putting 2 weeks of their time forward, then, that wouldn't be any different than employees taking leave time currently. So that's not going to be a direct, there's a financial cost to it. City pays that. But from a budgetary perspective, you're not going to see that in a line item. A thing that we will need to keep an eye on is, depending on the positions, if we're not able to shift responsibilities to other staff members, we may have to bring in a temp or some type of contract assistance. But I think, as we move forward with this program, we'll keep an eye on those things and, make the appropriate adjustments and assessments. So if we say a director knew that, an employee may, be planning to have a child, and that employee shared that with us openly, we don't ask those questions, but shared it, then, a director could anticipate, okay, we might need to, allocate X number of hours and dollars to bring in temporary help if we need to. But we'll make those adjustments. I'm not concerned about it. I think, most of the work will be absorbed by existing staff as best we can, and you may have to put some things on hold. But our staff does an amazing job at keeping things going. So I'm confident that we'll continue the level of teamwork that we have here.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Councilmember Duran Malika.
I have a quick question. So the recommendation from staff is to adopt this policy that you guys went over and opt out of the state administered paid family leave plan. So how do those differ then? The proposal that you just gave us and the state administered plan?
So that's a great question. The state administered plan requires both employees and employers to pay into state premiums. Those payments would be withdrawn from, I think, employees' paychecks and from the employer starting in 2023. So they're a ways out from even offering this. And once those premium payments start in 2023, employees would then be able to start using that paid leave in 2024. So I'm sorry, go ahead.
The benefit differences, is it the same amount of time off that we're kind of looking at, the same definitions of what family or caregiver, like the same?
Sure. So I think with an employer-based paid family leave policy, you can make it the benefit, what you would want, but you wouldn't want to make it any less than family medical leave, because then that wouldn't be, that wouldn't make sense. Proposition 118 also provides a 12-week benefit. The city policy has the first 2 weeks paid by the employee using their own leave.
Okay. And then if the employee doesn't have 2 weeks of leave, then it would be unpaid, right?
Correct.
Okay. All right.
I think also, just to add real quickly, Proposition 118 replaces approximately 77% of the city's employee wage. So this proposal is 100%.
Okay, great, thank you. I just wanted to clarify the differences between the two, and because we are opting out of the state administered plan, that's what the recommendation is for us to take action on. And so I just wanted to clarify the differences between the two. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilmember Peterson.
Thank you, Mayor. and thank you for your presentation. And I haven't met you yet, so wonderful to meet you, Ms. Dixon. Thank you so much.
Nice to meet you. Thank you.
You bet. So a couple of things here. So the Northglenn plan is 100% of full salary after 6 months. Am I correct in that?
It's 100%. So you have to work 6 months. The first 2 weeks you pay using your leave or it's unpaid. And then the remaining 10 weeks are 100% paid by the city.
Okay. And that's after a period of 6 months, correct?
You have to be employed for at least 6 months.
6 months. And the state program has a minimum requirement of base employment at 1 year. Is that correct as well?
That's the Family Medical Leave Act.
Okay, so that's not the prop. That's what just FMLA.
Correct. The state plan also requires 6 months of employment before that would kick in.
Okay.
So we just matched that.
So could the city of Northglenn, if we opt out of this, would we be required to uphold the 6 months minimum employee or employment, or could we extend that potentially longer for benefits to kick in?
That I'd have to research, but I would think we'd want to be aligned with Proposition 118 because that's the benefit.
Right, and beyond a moral aspect and doing the right thing with this, my only thing, and maybe Heather and can staff and talk about this, I would hope that a 6 month, I mean, when people need help, they need help. But I would hope that with 100% of the salary after 6 months, that wouldn't put an undue drain on either human resources or fiscal resources within the city. And I'm just thinking if there's a possibility of making this at 80%, as you said, in line with 115, to be in line with this at 80%, perhaps 6 months to 1 year, and after 1 year, go to the full 100%. And I don't know if that makes HR or fiscal sense, but I just want to make sure that we can do the right thing for our employees who need help, and also do the right thing staff-wise and economic-wise for the services we provide in our city.
I absolutely understand that and appreciate that thought and feedback. One thing I do want to note is just as employees must get certified to use family medical leave, we'd need to see certification from a medical provider that says they need this leave as well. And so, employees couldn't just apply for it and just get it.
Oh, and that's, yeah, and I'm not suggesting or implying anybody would dupe the system by any means. I just want to make sure that I want to make sure we can afford this.
Sure.
Right? We're doing the right thing. It's the right thing to do for families. And I want to make sure we can afford it. And Heather is says, well, we can shift resources and stuff like that. And she seems confident in that. And I just want to make sure sometimes, and I'm not an HR person, and sometimes that might be harder than just saying we can do it, especially since, we are a service provider here in terms of what we do in the city. And so, I want to do it and I want to do the right thing. And I'm glad it passed at the state level. I want to make sure that we have an honest and hopefully not hard, but an honest conversation about what's the best way of make this work for us, make it work for our families, make it work for our employees, and make it work for the functions of the city as well. And I would just like that to be a consideration for us as we evaluate this moving forward.
Thank you, Councilmember Peterson. I will interject that I would caution council in aligning the eligible benefit to years of service. I mean, that's, Tamara shared how we have our, how employees accrue general leave time based on years of service. But with this particular benefit, that would counter the effort that we're trying to make in terms of positioning the city to be family friendly. And I think that can get really tricky. And so I caution council on that front. I think that could potentially become problematic for us, especially as I want to say we have up to 5 generations in the workplace, and we'll continue to see a shift moving forward. So really positioning the city to be that employer of choice. I know it's a balancing act in terms of that service piece that you talked about and that we talked about at the strategic planning retreat on Saturday, with 60% of our general fund budget is dedicated towards personnel. And that's normal because we are a service organization. So I think it's something we definitely look at, but I really would caution council in that regard.
And that makes great sense, and that makes great sense. I just want to make sure that that we're able to do this with staffing if and when, these emergencies occur for our employees.
Councilmember
Thank
Brown.
You know what? I just need a little bit of clarity. Is the state plan paying at 100% or is it paying at 80%?
Yeah, I believe, Heather, it's 77% wage replacement.
77%.
It's 77%. It's short-term disability that is 80% wage replacement.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilmember Malika.
Yeah, I really just wanted to, I guess, speak to that. I think that the plan as presented is actually a really innovative policy moving forward. To be honest, I come from the corporate world, and so, sometimes there's not a lot of love there, but I'll just say that. But, this policy is, overwhelmingly supportive. And crises happened in your family, they could happen at any time. A loved one could get sick, and you need to take some time off of work. And so I really support the way the policy is as presented. I think that is really a draw for the city of Northglenn. I want to quit my job and come and work in the city. So I'm hiring. Just kidding. But really, I think that this is definitely a really robust policy and something I would like to consider moving forward with as a council. So thank you for bringing it forward tonight. And yeah, love it.
Thank you for saying that. And I will share that the first time I heard of a paid family leave policy was at a Colorado Culture of Health conference from a private sector employer.
Really?
Yes, that was several years ago.
Interesting.
Councilmember Goff.
Thank you, Mayor. There are a couple of things that I just want to comment on. One is that I know our staff has worked so hard during this COVID crisis, doing, 2.5 jobs when they would normally be doing just their own. And I just feel like we have such a good staff that I don't want to lose anybody. I think they're worth whatever we can manage. When I look at the examples, and I know you can't predict the future, just based on what happened in the past, but considering what it cost us in the last 4 years, it's really not a very large amount of our whole budget. And I do think asking them to use the first 2 weeks, of their own leave, that it's going to discourage anybody who might, sort of take it less seriously or think that that's, they'll jump at an excuse to take advantage of it because they have to contribute something. In the state plan, they're paying on a monthly basis. In our plan, they're using their first 2 weeks of whatever you call it, general leave or personal leave. So I think it's a good balance. I would support it. I wish there was something like this. When I was having my children, that would have made my life a lot easier. And so I would support it as it's been presented.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other final comments or questions?
Mayor, I'll just jump in real quick. We've had extensive conversations even prior to this night, and I really commend the staff for all the work they've done. I think it's a good policy, and I would definitely support it. And to Catherine's comment about a maternity leave, when I was working at I'm not going to say where, they gave us 3 days. We had a 3-day leave, and then that was it. So I would, if I was having it, I would be very supportive. Thanks.
I do also support it as presented, and and I thank you for your work on it. I also want to double check, because this is your first time presenting to council, and I may have mispronounced your name. Could you say your name for me?
It's Tamara.
Tamara. Okay,
Yes.
that's what I thought, and then I was like, oh no, I would feel terrible if I said it wrong. Sorry.
Thank you.
Well, welcome. Oh.
No worries.
Well, welcome again.
Thank you so much.
And, we appreciate you coming to council tonight and presenting. That was great.
Thank you. I appreciate you all. Thank you.
And
Okay.
Mayor, I'll just add real quick, since Tamara's still here with us. She is working on a couple other policy related items. She's well underway in working on a flexible schedule, remote schedule policy, which I've told council that we'll bring back at a future date, as well as I've been asked a couple times by employees on virtual all employee meetings about that, given what we've learned in terms of being flexible through COVID-19 and what that might look like for our workplace. Additionally, she's also looking at different options, going back to somewhat of what you were touching on, Councilmember Goff, about our staff has been working really hard. So how do we reward them? And really, is there something else we can do? And so we're having conversations about that. And so I'll let council know when I come up with something more solidified, just under discussion right now. So just wanted to update you on those two fronts as well.
Okay, thank you. Well,
Thank you.
bye.
Bye-bye.
To the end of our meeting earlier than normal. So I hope you all enjoy the rest of your evening. We are adjourned.
Meredith, I'm going to have to call you later.